A warm welcome to Diski Talk with Luyolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I ask that you please do subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So on today's episode, I dissect all things Orlando Pirates as I have a look at their new signings, Mr. Mandla Ncikazi, and a couple of key players who I think will be very important going into the new season. And then in the extra time segment, I will do a tactical preview of how they might potentially line up going into the new season. So the first segment then is the new signings. So Orlando Pirates have made a couple of signings. I will start with Goodman Mosele, who is a defender who's joined Orlando Pirates on a free, used to play for Maritzburg United. However, now he does find himself in the colors of Orlando Pirates. So with regards to Kwanda, he is very good defender, in my opinion. Very physical, very strong. However, he's also very comfortable on the ball. My only issue is with this signing is how does he fit into Orlando Pirates? You know, especially considering how Pirates have had defensive struggles and considering the fact that there still is Hlatshwayo there and there's Happy Jelly. Does he get straight into the lineup? In my personal opinion, I don't think so. However, before I move on to the next signing, at home, please do comment and let me know what you make of this signing. Moving on then to the next signing, a man who was his teammate at Maritzburg United is Mandla Ncikazi. And this is a player who has lots of energy, a player who's tactically versatile by virtue of the fact that he can play as a wing back, he can also play as an attacking offensive player, but coming from wide, and he can play as a right fullback. So I think then when it comes to the right-hand side of Orlando Pirates with regards to their right back position and right wing back position, this is a good addition from a competition perspective. I don't think that he walks into the lineup because I think Wade Euster is the best option. However, for squad depth purposes, then I think it's a good signing because I just felt that Pirates didn't really have another right-sided fullback or right-sided wing back who could thoroughly compete for that position. So then moving on then to the next man, Mosele. Mosele has signed on a long-term contract. This is a young player who's done very well for himself at Baroka, and I think Pirates have made a very good decision, especially considering his age as well, and that he's still got so many years ahead of him. A young player who's very coachable, a young player who has so many traits within his skill set, which can make him one of the best players in midfield, not just from an Orlando Pirates perspective, but also going into the national team. We do know that he recently competed at the Olympics with that under-23 team. So with regards to his signing, from a subjective standpoint, I just didn't feel the signing was necessary. And I say that because I think Orlando Pirates are well covered within that central midfield position. And I just think that there's players that they have to their disposal. However, from an objective perspective, when we're looking at things from a long-term view, then I think it's a good signing because, like I mentioned, there's age on his side. You look at Benjamin Mutsuari and you look at Thabang Munare, they're not getting any younger. So having then a young player who could deputize for them and who could potentially dethrone one of them going into the upcoming season, then that is a good signing for Orlando Pirates. The next man we have a look at is a man who comes from the GLAD Africa Championship. Goes by the name of Saleng. He also played at the COSAFA Cup, where he showed us his skill set and how good he is of a player. So this is a player I'm very excited about because I just think that he has the traits to go on to become a very good player for Orlando Pirates. However, he has been loaned out to Swallows, which I think is also a good decision by virtue of the fact that the position that he plays in as an offensive player is quite saturated, because we do know that there's Dion Hoto in that position. There's Vincent Pule in that position. You've got Thembinkosi Lorch also in that position. So when you're looking at it from a winger perspective, you know, that is very saturated for Orlando Pirates. And I think it's important that a player of his caliber and a player who is at his age is playing regularly. So I think then that was a great signing by Orlando Pirates, and it's them looking at the long term. And then when we have a look at him going to Swallows and how he fits in, I think he will replace Sikota by virtue of the fact that Sikota was their talisman, their playmaker. He was a player who has a very, very good skill set. And when you look at Saleng, he's got a similar skill set. However, what I think Saleng has that Sikota doesn't have or hasn't developed as of yet is an eye for goal. Saleng is a player that can score you goals, you know. So I really look forward to his development and growth within DStv Premiership football. And I honestly wish him the best within that Swallows team. So let's move on then to the next segment. So the next segment is Mandla Ncikazi. So Mandla Ncikazi has been appointed as a part and parcel of the technical team. When the news did break out in the beginning stages, I was actually disappointed by virtue of the fact that I felt that he should have been made the head coach, especially when you look at the season that he had with Golden Arrows, how he had them playing free-flowing, beautiful football, and how he was able to get the best out of relatively young players, you know. So I was sort of disappointed. And also, when you think of it and you look at that situation, it sort of didn't make sense how his position was inconclusive by virtue of the fact that all they had given us was that he's a part of the technical team. But it's now apparent that he is an assistant coach or one of the assistant coaches at Orlando Pirates, which, okay, not happy that he has not been made as the head coach. However, happy that he will still then get to contribute from a coaching perspective. And what I think he brings to Pirates, he brings a clear set philosophy, and he brings a structured style of play, which is something I think Orlando Pirates have been lacking. However, to play devil's advocate on this is that because he is the assistant coach, I don't think he will have that carte blanche, and I don't think he will have all the freedom and that control to be able to impose all of his ideologies on the squad, because there still is a head coach, and we do know that within football, whenever there is a head coach, he obviously wants then to be the main man, and the buck ends and starts with him. So I think then it will be a bit difficult for him too, but I still do think that it's a great addition to that technical team and what he brings for certain individuals within that team. However, before I move on to the next segment, my unpopular opinion when it does come to Mr. Mandla Ncikazi is that in the very near future, I think he's going to become the head coach of Orlando Pirates, joint head coach, him and Fadlu Davids. I do foresee that happening if Mr. Joseph Zinnbauer doesn't get off to a good start. I definitely do see Mandla Ncikazi becoming the head coach at Orlando Pirates, and I think that's the role that they're grooming him for, because I just think that would be doing his talent a disservice if we don't see him in a head coaching position. So I do wish him all the best. He is one of my favorite coaches within local football, and I know he's a coach that's going to rise to prominence and can take Orlando Pirates back to the very top by winning multiple trophies and having them compete, you know. However, for now, he is the assistant, so it remains to be seen as to how that will work out, which is I'm quite interested at seeing how they work together as a trio with Mr. Fadlu Davids and Joseph Zinnbauer as well. So moving on then right along, having a look at Jele. So Jele is one of the most experienced footballers which are currently playing within the DStv Premiership. He's a long-serving player of Orlando Pirates who's done very well for himself over the years. So he's a player that I really like, and the reason why I'd like to have a look at him is because I think that if he can play consistently and if he can find his consistency with regards to the minutes and with regards to how he leads that team, I think he could be the key going into this season alongside Hlatshwayo, of course, you know. So having a look at both of them, I think they'll be very key for Orlando Pirates, especially if Orlando Pirates are trying to A, mount a title challenge, B, win domestic trophies. From a defensive perspective, I think those two will be very important for Orlando Pirates. I did touch on them earlier on with regards to Kwanda and how would he fit in, and I mentioned the both of them because I still don't think that they've signed a centre back who will be able to just walk into that starting lineup and command the respect and lead that team. So by virtue of that, I still do think that Jele has a huge role to play within this Orlando Pirates side. So moving on then right along to another player who I think will be very key for Pirates going into the upcoming season is Lorch. You know, this is a player who has struggled for form and fitness over the past 2 years, and also from a psychological perspective, you know, him not getting that desired move, him not being able then to explore certain challenges and play for Bafana and for the team regularly by virtue of him picking up injuries. So I think if he can stay fully fit this season, he could be the key to Orlando Pirates challenging for trophies. He could be the key to Orlando Pirates stamping their authority within the DStv Premiership. So I think he's going to be very important. I just hope that he's able to get over certain things which were bothering him off the field as well, and certain things which were bothering him psychologically. So, because I think when he's at his best and at his prime, he is a player that can go toe-to-toe with Themba Zwane within the DStv Premiership when we're looking at who's the best player within the DStv Premiership. So I definitely do think it's Themba Zwane. However, when Lorch is fully fit, he can definitely challenge Themba Zwane for that title. So I really look forward to this season from Lorch's perspective, because I think he's a key player, a complete playmaker who can get you goals, can get you the assists as well. So moving on then to the last player within this segment where I was looking at key players is Mhango. Another player who, when he's on song, complete forward, ambidextrous technical skill set and can do so much for you, is a player that I don't quite understand why he hasn't really gotten that game time underneath Joseph Zinnbauer, especially considering his tactical and technical flexibility and versatility as well. And when we have a look at him, I think he's key for Orlando Pirates when it comes to scoring goals and also when it comes to linking play in that final third. So I do understand that he did pick up injuries in the past season. He's also another one, if he can stay fully fit, he will be very instrumental for Orlando Pirates, especially considering that Mabasa and Lipasa are still recovering from injuries. So I think going into the season, having a fully fit Mhango, having a fully fit Lorch and fully fit Jele could be the difference for Orlando Pirates heading into the season. So then let's move on to the next segment, having then a look at Joseph Zinnbauer, who, look, there was many reports surrounding him at Orlando Pirates. Would he stay? Would he leave? There was also the reports of Steve Kompella could come on board, but we do know that Joseph Zinnbauer will start the season in charge of the Sea Robbers. However, from my perspective, I just don't think that he's fit for the role, and I feel like he's been given enough time to show us what he has. And with the squad that he has, I've just been very disappointed that he hasn't been able to garner more success with that squad, because when we look at it from a qualitative perspective and you look at other squads within the DStv Premiership, I think there's only one squad which is better than Orlando Pirates, which is Mamelodi Sundowns. I think Orlando Pirates should be going toe-to-toe with Mamelodi Sundowns, but I just feel like they don't have a well-refined tactician at the helm who can put it together and go and challenge for those trophies. Yes, I do acknowledge that he won the MTN 8 and he broke the drought, which was very important for Orlando Pirates. But going into this season, it's non-negotiable. Orlando Pirates have to win trophies this season. You know, you'd like to think that after 2 seasons with this squad, with quality players, something has to give. And personally, if he's still at the helm, I don't see that happening. And I did touch on Mr. Mandla Ncikazi earlier on, and I think he is the right man to take Bucks forward. However, because Mr. Joseph Zinnbauer is still at the helm, and because he is the head coach, we'll respect him and see what he can do going into this season. So let's move on then to the extra time segment, where I do a tactical preview of Orlando Pirates. But before I get into the tactical preview from a reality perspective, I will start with my fantasy team and also tell you why I think Orlando Pirates are the perfect 3-4-3 team. So let's head straight into it then. So how then would I then do things concerning Orlando Pirates? Well, this is how I'd go about with working with Orlando Pirates if I was the tactician and at the helm. So I think Orlando Pirates, firstly, are the perfect 3-4-3 team, right? So in goals, I'd have Richard Ofori. I think he's a straight starter with regards to his quality and experience within the DStv Premiership. So my 3 at the back then would be, as the left-sided centre half, I would have Happy Jele. And then as the libero, I would have Abel Mabaso, because I think that he is one of the best players within the DStv Premiership, and I just think that he's such an underrated footballer. You know, like a lot of people don't realize how much quality he possesses. He's personally one of my favorite players, and a player who I know can contribute so much to this Orlando Pirates side. And then as the right-sided centre half, I'd have Thulani Hlatshwayo. So with regards then to Tyson, and the reason why I'd have him here is because coming up through the youth ranks of Ajax, Cape Town, and then playing at Wits, we did see him operate as a right back at times. So he's very comfortable in this right-hand channel. So that's why I think he'd be very perfect in this role, as opposed to him playing in a 2. And when we look at then Abel Mabaso, I think he is one of the most suitable candidates to play as a libero within the DStv Premiership, because he is a defender who thinks like a midfielder, and he's also very versatile, very comfortable on the ball. And what I like about this is that the fluidity and the flexibility gives you from a tactical standpoint is quite the one to actually admire, because it could start as a back 3. When he progresses into midfield, and you got your 2 in there, when he progresses into the midfield, these 2 can always come in, and then it can go to a 4. So it could be a 3-4-3 that transitions into a 4-3-3. Or you could have the inverse of that, where it's a 4-3-3 which transitions into a 3-4-3. So he could always step into the midfield to help out. He could always step into the midfield to break the lines, to progress the ball, and very comfortable on the ball. That's why I'd have him as the libero. So with regards then to the other players within the squad, I think then the reason why I say that Orlando Pirates are the perfect 3-4-3 team is that when we look at it from a defensive perspective, firstly, you look at the other options they have when it comes to the back 3. As a left-sided centre half, you can have Mayela. We do know that he can play as a left wing back or a left back, but I think he's a lot more on the defensive side, very comfortable in this channel and operating here. He can give you the width, but this is where he's very comfortable. So if anything were to happen to Jele, Mayele would slot right in without hesitance, which I think then he would be a very, very good libero. And then another option to look at is Kwanda Mngonyama. So the reason why then I also say that they're the perfect 3-4-3 team from a defensive perspective is if anything were to happen to Tyson, Kwanda Mngonyama can slot in right here. So from that perspective, whenever I set up and I look at my teams from a tactical standpoint, I need to understand and see what works best, not just for the strongest 11 players, but for the whole squad. And I believe in assigning roles for players as opposed to building a team around a couple of key players. But have a system which is role orientated, have a system which would predicate for consistency and for players to play in their best and natural positions, which then would help them to fit in like a glove, irrespective of what happens. So from a defensive perspective, that's what I would do. Ofori goals, Tyson as the right-sided centre half, Abel Mabaso as my libero, and then as the left-sided centre half, I would have Happy Jele, who is also another one who, in the beginning of his career, he played as a right back in a full-back position. So he does understand having to come into this wide channel. So that is it from a defensive perspective. Let's move on then into the midfield. So when we have a look at the midfield, and the reason why I say they're the perfect 3-4-3 team is because when you look at Orlando Pirates, most of their central midfielders are deep-laying players, or they are players who are defensive midfielders. So you've got a Tabang Munare, you've got a Ben Mutsware, which then would predicate for a very good double pivot system. So then you're looking at a 3-2 from a defensive perspective. From deep areas, you're looking at players who are comfortable on the ball, who can start play from deep. Let's have a look at the other options. You've got Nkanyiso Zungu, you've got Goodman Mosele. These are players who can also operate in a double pivot. But what would be my double pivot combination? Well, I would have Benjamin Mutsware and I would have Nkanyiso Zungu. So Benjamin Mutsware, we all know what he can do. Very experienced campaigner, and he's very good on the ball, very comfortable. He reads the game very well as well. But the player that I would like to highlight is Nkanyiso Zungu, who is one of my favorite players within this Orlando Pirates setup. And the reason why I say so is because this is such an intelligent footballer, you know, and I just feel like people haven't really got to see the best of him, and people don't really understand and appreciate his talent. A left-footed centre mid, which I think is very rare in football. And when you do get a left-footed centre mid who is very intelligent, knows how to read the game, knows how to occupy the half spaces whenever he does push forward, knows how to split the defense, knows how to pinpoint passes and find these offensive players, you have to use him. And in this midfield, I think he would be very, very important. And going back to the duality of the 3-4-3 is that whenever he does push forward and you want an extra man in midfield, Abel Mabaso can always push in. He can even go in and become a 10. And that's the beauty of having a versatile system. So having a look then at my wing backs, on the right side, I would have Wade Euster. Wade Euster is a player who has played as a winger, you know, in previous times when he did play for Golden Arrows. He was playing as a right-sided winger, sometimes as a left-sided winger. And the reason why I say that he'd be perfect for a 3-4-3 system is that it would enable him to focus a lot more on the offensive side of the game, because that's what he's comfortable with. And I believe that players where they're most comfortable at. And I always say that you can always tell what a player loves doing. You don't even have to ask him what's your favorite position or what's your natural position. Just put players on a field and tell them, hey, you guys are going to play now 11v11 and there's no restrictions. Play the way in which you would like, and just from that you tell that, okay, this one likes attacking, this one likes occupying half spaces, so he's a creative player, he's a playmaker. This one likes to keep the width, he likes to attack, well, he's a wing back or a winger. So with Wade Euster, I would have him as the right wing back, and it's perfect for him because there's cover in this area. And what I like is that there's cover from a Tyson if anything were to happen. Is a player who's well-versed at this right-sided channel, and if Mutsware has to drift to the side, he can do that. So I think it bodes really well for him. As my left wing back, I would have Paseka Marco. Also another one, when coming through the youth ranks of Mamelodi Sundowns at M Tigers, he did play a lot further up. He was a left winger. He can also play as an attacking midfielder. We did see that at Cape Town All-Stars, and also when he played at Chippa United. But he's now developed into a fine fullback, in my opinion. Very, very comfortable on the ball. His reading of the game is second to none. And his technical skill set is complete, in my opinion, by virtue of the fact that he's very comfortable within a 5 to 10 meter radius with regards to his passing. And whenever he needs to deliver crosses, he can do that. You know, so he is a player that can play 5 to 10 meter passes. But if he has to switch the ball, he can do that. You won't see him doing that often, but the quality that he has, he can give you that. So he's also perfect in this channel, playing as a left wing back, because then he's got the cover if needs be. And what it does is whenever he does go, this player can always tuck in. Nkanyiso Zungu can always come. So it does keep the triangulation, which is very important. And that's what I believe in, having a ball-playing system where there's lots of triangulation around the field and positional play, which sees a lot of rotation on the football field. So moving then on to my two, we can call them two number 10s. We can call them inverted forwards. We can call them inside forwards. But because I'm a lot more progressive and a lot more on the creative side, I'll call them my inside forwards. And on the left-hand side, my left-hand-sided inside forward, who would occupy the left-hand-sided half space, it would be Thembinkosi Lorch. And it goes back to what I've been saying, that Pirates are the perfect 3-4-3 team, because this is the position that Thembinkosi Lorch likes to occupy. He likes to start from wide and then come in. So then the relationship we're looking at between wing back and inside forward becomes quite the seamless one and quite the beautiful one, by virtue of the fact that Paseka Marco will go, Lorch will drop in. This is where he does a lot of his work, where he's looking to link up play. And he's also very good in this position because he's a player who's got an eye for goal, and I would want to motivate him to get a lot more goals. And how do you do that? Sometimes it's not by words, but it's by virtue of the fact that you're able to, from a positional standpoint, encourage a player. So put him in positions where he's able to take shots. Put him in positions where he's a lot closer to the goal. So in this position, he's a lot closer to the goal, and he then starts to operate in zone 14 as well, if needs be. So very perfect in this position for Thembinkosi Lorch. On the right-hand side, I think then the player who would be perfect in this position is Vincent Pule. And I say that because he's a player who has an eye for goal, also another one who starts wide but can come in. And whenever he does come in, it complements Wade Euster. We still have triangulation. If he then drifts out wide, we still have triangulation. He comes across, we still have triangulation. So there's triangulation all over the pitch. So that's what I like about Orlando Pirates, and why I think that if they can play 3-4-3, I think they'd be the perfect team. I think they could challenge Mamelodi Sundowns to a certain degree. I think that if they're used in the right manner and they're used in this way, I think we could get the very best out of all players. And then having the other options, because I did say that a system must also suit those who could be potential replacements. We have a look at Dion Hotto, who can also start from wide and come in, you know. And also on this side as well, if you do decide to play him on the left-hand side, you know, on this side, he will keep his width, and then you could see a Paseka Marco maybe venturing in forward, you know. But the main purpose is to keep it as a 3-4-3 and keep it as creative as possible. So Hotto would come off this side. And then having a look at my striker. So my striker would be none other than Gabadinho Mhango, because I think he's very perfect in zone 14. And if you look at the types of goals that he scores, he's a very complete forward, left foot, right foot. He can score with his head as well. And when you look at the other options, there's Mabasa and there's Lipasa. They'd also fit into this system as well, because those aren't just your traditional target men, but they're players who can also link up play, bring these guys into the game, you know. So that's how I would set up with Orlando Pirates if the onus fell onto me, because I think this would bring out the very best out of each and every single individual. More or less everybody is in their comfort zone. They're in positions that they thoroughly understand. That's what I would do. But let's move on then to reality, because we all know that it's one thing to dream about this lineup, but when we all know Mr. Zinnbauer, yeah. So in the past season, we saw his lineup is very inconsistent, but I will try my very best to put out a team that he would regularly use, which is also a bit difficult because he has such an inconsistent lineup, and that's why I think Orlando Pirates struggled. So with Mr. Zinnbauer, he likes using a 4-2-3-1. So 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, he likes that. And he also likes going with a false 9 at times, even though he has strikers to his disposal, which is something that irritates me because I believe that Orlando Pirates have some of the best strikers within the DStv Premiership if utilized correctly. So in goals, he'd have Richard Ofori. The centre-back partnership was very inconsistent, but it would most likely be Tulani Hlatshwayo and Happy Jele. At left back, Paseka Mako was a player that was starting to grow in confidence, and he did claim that position, but you could also see Mayela. So at left back, we'll say Paseka Mako or Mayela. And then at right back, Wade Euster. And then when we move into midfield, so this is where it gets very inconsistent with regards to Mr. Zinnbauer. In midfield, he'd like the double pivot of Munare and Mutware. However, at some times you would see him having Fortune Makaringe alongside Mutware going in a lot deeper. We did see for a couple of games Kanyiso Zungu also played in the double pivot, but most likely would be a Munare and a Mutware. However, don't rule out Goodman Mosele also walking straight into the lineup because of his exploits. So Mosele could also be in there. But a player that I can guarantee you will start in the midfield as part of a double pivot, if he goes the double pivot, is Benjamin Mutware. So let's say Benjamin Mutware, and then here we'll say Mosele/Munare. And then as a number 10, a player who has been growing in confidence, who is now starting to clearly show us what he is Fortune Makaringe. This is a player who I felt has so much potential, but sometimes he was struggling because I feel that he dropped too deep, whereas you've already got the men to do the work in midfield. Occupy these zones, the half spaces. Occupy zone 14. Focus on getting into the box, making those late runs and finishing. So here it would be Fortune Makaringe. Sometimes it would be Lorch, sometimes it would be Pule. But let's go with Makaringe. And then on the left-hand side would be Thembinkosi Lorch when fully fit. On the right-hand side would be Pule, or it can even be Hoto, or Hoto can even come this side. So there's many options that Orlando Pirates have. And the more I speak about Orlando Pirates squad and I run through these options, it sort of makes you realize how many quality players they have to their disposal and how they should be challenging for top honors. And then as the striker, Mhango is not really his favorite player, because at times you'd have Mhango, he'd even go with the false 9. But a player who was a lot more consistent with regards to starting, it was Mabasa in the past season. And even at the beginning of the season, it was Lipasa as well. So you're looking at Lipasa, you're looking at Mabasa, or you're looking at Mhango. So Orlando Pirates throughout the field have so many options, and yeah, that is more or less how they would line up. So going through the new players then who have signed, so you could have Kwandam Ngonyama slot in right there. You could have Shandu slotting in maybe as a fullback. And even then, when we go back to why I think they're perfect for a 3-4-3, Bandile Shandu at Maritzburg United did play as a wing back, so he could be perfect for to deputize for Wade Euster as the wing back. So yeah, Orlando Pirates have so many options with regards to what they can do. So that was what I think Zinnbauer would do going into this new season. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Liolo, where I dissected all things Orlando Pirates and we had a look at their upcoming season. In the comment section, please do let me know, what do you make of the Orlando Pirates squad? Do you think that they should be challenging for top honors? Do you think that they're being used in the correct manner? And what would be your fantasy team? Thank you very much for tuning in to Diski Talk with Liolo. And as always, I am your host with the most, and I go by the name of Liolo, signing out.